What is up, everybody, and welcome back to your Average Joe Sports Network. I'm your host, Drew Hoover, and we are now getting into the NFC Conference. And so let's get right into the NFC North, and that is where my Packers are. But before we get to the Packers, let's get to Chicago to talk about the Bears. And honestly, the big story of the offseason was the confusing signing of Andy Dalton. Now, those who didn't hear that they were in contention for Russell Wilson when it came out that Seattle was interested in trading him, but they didn't like what they heard, so they refused the Bears' offer, and so Andy Dalton was their second best. But I'm not gonna say that that's where they're gonna end right there, because to me, Andy Dalton, I think, has had his time, and I think he serves as more of a backup at this point in his career. And so when you look at draft day and you look at how the draft is shaping out, I'm thinking they have to trade up to get a quarterback. And so there's a quarterback that I feel like they need to get their eyes on, because I feel like this is the one that could potentially slip, because I feel like there's so different views on him. His name is Justin Fields, quarterback from The Ohio State University. Now, this guy started at University of Georgia and then transferred to the Ohio State Buckeyes. And to me, in the earliest evaluations of him, I kind of pushed the brakes on him, because there's a history of Ohio State Buckeye quarterbacks not making an NFL. It's not just been Dwayne Haskins from a few years ago. You go all the way back to Troy Smith. They got Terrell Pryor, which, by the way, he got converted to wide receiver, and that's most of the success he had in the NFL. You talk about J.T. Barrett. You talk about Cordell Jones. I mean, there's been a history of Ohio State quarterbacks not living up to the hype. And so when I first saw Justin Fields, I obviously saw, similar comparisons to Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts, who both came out of Oklahoma. And originally I was like, you know what, I would not take Justin Fields over those two. But now that it's been a few months, I've had a chance to watch the film. I've had a chance to watch his pro day, and even had to hear other experts and scouts and analysts think their thoughts. When I look at the film, some parts made me think of Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson. Now, I'm not saying he's at their level, but there's some of that there. When you talk about being a competitor, he didn't just lead Ohio State Buckeyes. He led the entire Big Ten back into football in 2020. He was the front runner in convincing the Big Ten to play in 2020. And so when you have a guy like that wants to play as much as he can, and people say that he reads better than people have said, and so you add that with Matt Nagy's offensive mind, and it's kind of like you said, they didn't get Russell Wilson. Perhaps they can still have it in Justin Fields. Now, what if they decide to stay where they're at, and they're just going to pick whoever's the best available? I still think they need to address the offensive side, particularly at wide receiver, because if they don't pursue any of those quarterbacks and you really are relying on Andy Dalton, then you got to give him more weapons. Allen Robinson, they got him back on a franchise tag. They have Jimmy Graham, but I feel like they need more weapons. They relied on guys like Anthony Miller, which I think he's a good slot receiver, but I don't think he can be that number 2 guy that they need. And there's a guy that played number 2 at his university that I think could end up making a big impact in Chicago, and his name is Terrace Marshall Jr., wide receiver from LSU. And when you went at their pro day, people were shocked to see that him, along with teammate Jamar Chase, had almost the exact same 40-yard dash time. They both ran under 4.4, around 4.38. And so when you look at this guy's film, he can obviously stretch the field. He's got quickness, particularly he's very good not only in the deep threat, but also in those inside underneath routes. And I feel like when you talk about the offense, if you're talking about Andy Dalton, if he looks for a wide receiver, not only can he can throw it up to him on a prayer, but also if he just needs to dump the ball when he's under pressure, I feel like Terrace Marshall could end up being that wide receiver and could be a very good fit in that offense. Now let's switch over to the Detroit Lions, and it is, I don't know what's going to happen, but you want to believe the hype because they've had so much bad luck. And when you hear the press conference that Dan Campbell had, the new head coach, who by the way was a former tight end of the Lions many years ago, you want to believe the hype, but like I said, when you talk about the history, it's like, what do you want to believe? But I am enthused by not only his hiring, but the staff around him. Talking about their quarterback coach is Mark Brunell, their running back coach is Deuce Staley, the wide receiver coach is Antoine Randall. So they've definitely got some other coaches in there that have player experience that can relate to these players. I think it's probably the inspiration of Mike Vrabel, his impact in Tennessee. But regardless, but when I look at Detroit, I don't see anywhere around this that at number 7 it's going to be a wide receiver. Now, for the first time, I am going to go with a comparison segment and just give you two options. Just explain both two wide receivers right there, and then tell you my pick out of the two. So that's my first one. And technically, at number 7, there's almost a Mexican standoff going on. And I'll mention the names. You have Jamar Chase from LSU. You got two wide receivers from Alabama, Devontae Smith, who I've mentioned before, and then Jalen Waddle. Now, Jalen Waddle could still end up being in this conversation, but I think teams could still be hesitant despite the positive feedback they had about the injury he suffered back early in the year. And so I think teams might be hesitant and he might drop out of the top 10. So the two wide receivers I'll be comparing are going to be Jamar Chase and Devontae Smith. And so let us start with Jamar Chase, since we've already talked about Devontae Smith a little bit. Man, this guy, even though he's only 6 feet, he plays like he's 6'5", 6'6". This guy is probably the best wide receiver in this draft of making contested catches. And when I look at this guy's potential, I feel like you're talking about a guy that can, I think of like Calvin Johnson. Again, thinking about the Lions here, I also think of Julio Jones, of guys that in their career have had multiple seasons where they've had 100 receptions and 1,400 yards receiving. I feel like this guy has a future with the right quarterback and the right offense. You got Anthony Lynn, offensive coordinator. They got Jared Goff as their quarterback. I feel like they could definitely stretch the field, with Jamar Chase. And when you look at the other side, again, I mentioned Devontae Smith. It's hard to not think about him because I mentioned before, the Heisman winner who broke several SEC and Alabama records. You're talking about not only is he fluid in his route running, but he makes these acrobatic, athletic catches. And so you're wondering, who do you choose? Do you choose Jamar Chase or do you choose Devontae Smith? Now, when I look at it, like I said, I've mentioned Antoine Randall. If you don't know him, before he became a wide receiver head coach, he was a wide receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And he was more of an athletic wide receiver. He was a guy that was involved in a lot of play action, a lot of trick plays, including the touchdown pass in the Super Bowl and Super Bowl 40 to Hines Ward, his teammate. He was a former quarterback in college. And so you talk about him and his athletic ability and what he's able to do. I think he's attracted to those similar types. But at the same time, going back to offensive coordinator Anthony Lynn, he spent time as head coach of the Chargers, and he got to play with some of the big guys that have bigger frames that can make those physical catches, like Keenan Allen or Mike Williams. Those are guys that are fast and can also make a lot of those contested catches. So I feel like it could go either way. The way I reason it is the way, again, the draft is going to unfold. when I look at the way the draft's going to unfold, we've already confirmed that the first 3 picks are going to be quarterbacks, even though we know Trevor Lawrence is obviously going to be number 1. 2, I think we're sort of certain with Zach Wilson. There's still a little bit up in the air on that one. And then Mac Jones, I think we're all in denial, and even myself. We'll get to him in a future segment. And then at number 4, that seems to be a prime target for the Falcons to trade down and for a team to get a quarterback right there. And if not, the Falcons have said, hey, we'll draft a quarterback if we don't trade down. And then I look at number 5, where I think they're going to pick an offensive lineman with Penei Sewell. And then I've told you in the past, Kyle Pitts, the tight end, if he falls to Miami, I feel like that's going to be a no-brainer right there. So when I look at the best player available right here, which, like I said, you haven't even touched the wide receivers at this point, I have to lean towards Jamar Chase right here. And like I said, when I look at his athletic ability, when I look at the way he can make those contested catches, and when you look at pretty much the way that cornerbacks are built these days, and I feel like he has definitely a physical advantage against those cornerbacks in this league. And when you look at the other wide receivers in the NFC North, you look at when you have to, when you compare yourself to Justin Jefferson, his former teammate from LSU, or Devontae Adams from Green Bay, you got to be able to, make some big plays down the field. I mean, that's pretty much, Aaron Rodgers is built for that. Kirk Cousins, like I said, made a lot of big plays down the field. I don't know Andy Dalton. I think he's going to be more of a drop the ball, short pass guy. But I feel like with Jared Goff, I feel like the combination of Jamar Chase and Jared Goff is going to prove well. And so now let's move on to the Green Bay Packers. My Green Bay Packers, finally, we have gotten to this moment. And to be honest, it has been a frustrating time for me because last year they drafted Jordan Love, a second-round quarterback that, I don't see why they traded away all those picks for him. And especially when Aaron Rodgers, before the draft, was like, I'm going to play for another 5 years. So you pretty much drafted a player that's going to play for 5 years. And I don't want to get into the comparisons between when Aaron Rodgers was drafted, when Brett Favre was starting, and Jordan Love when Aaron Rodgers was drafted. But it's not the same at all. And I feel like they wasted the opportunity, not to mention they drafted A.J. Dillon. And I love A.J. Dillon. I loved when he came out of Boston College. But again, I didn't think it was – so pretty much the first 2 picks were at positions that they were already solid in. So I'm hoping in this draft that they can do better because obviously from the way that the results of last year went, it was the same as the year before. 2 years ago, they went to the NFC Championship game, lost to San Francisco. And then, like I said, when the way it drafted out, the 2020 season, yes, Aaron Rodgers won the MVP, but it was the same outcome. NFC Championship game, lose to the Buccaneers. So I feel like they need to get a wide receiver. But unfortunately, I don't think they're going to do it in the first round. I mean, I want them to so bad. And we as Packer fans have faith that they're going to do the right thing. But they haven't drafted a wide receiver in the first round since 2002 when they drafted Javon Walker. So it has been a long time. And so when I look at this, I'm thinking they're just going to lean either offensive line or defense. That's what they usually go in the first round. And when I look at the way the bottom of the first round is going to turn out, I feel like they can definitely benefit from a linebacker. And honestly, they've been struggling at the linebacker position for many years, I believe. I think the last good linebacker they had was Nick Barnett, and he's been gone from the game for a long time. And last year, during the free agency time, they lost Blake Martinez and Jake Ryan. They did sign Craig Robinson, I believe. But I still feel like there's a need at the linebacker position. There's a void in there in the middle of the field that if someone can break, if a running back can break through the line of scrimmage and get to the second level, then I feel like it's game over unless you have a star linebacker right there. And there's a guy that's been climbing up the boards. And like I said, when this, the COVID season and stuff, there's some players that might fall under the radar. But I feel like this guy fits the defense well, and his name is Damon Davis, linebacker from Kentucky. And when I look at this guy's, his tenacity, when I look at the way he can run from sideline to sideline, the way he could just wait, and the way he could just explode in the gaps, I feel like it fits perfectly to what the Packers want to do on defense. When you talk about the personalities you got there with Preston Smith and Zadarius Smith, and I feel like he fits that front seven really well. I think it fits the mentality that they want to bring in there. And so if you get a guy like Jamon Davis from Kentucky, I feel like this guy can definitely maybe bring this team to the next level. But yet again, they still need a wide receiver. But as I said, they haven't drafted a wide receiver in the first round since 2002. But the second round is where they seem to find a lot of their star wide receivers. Davante Adams was drafted in the second round. Jordy Nelson, Greg Jennings, James Jones. A lot of the wide receivers that we know from the Green Bay Packers were drafted in the second round. So to me, if they find a wide receiver in the second round, it really has to stand out. And to me, this guy may not be what people say a top 5 or a top 10 wide receiver, but I feel like this guy, they like these guys that are underrated, and I feel like this guy is severely underrated, and I feel like could surprise people when he's picked in the second round. And his name is Anthony Schwartz, wide receiver from Auburn. This guy was an absolute track star, and it showed when he ran under 4.3. That's right, he ran under 4.3. And considering his size, it's not even fair. When you look at his tape, he didn't get a lot of opportunities at Auburn. Obviously, he had some competition with his teammate Seth Williams. But when I look at this guy, when I look at, he said he wants to play football, and man, I just look at, if I see Davante Adams on one side and this guy on the other, and then, like I said, whatever you have at slot, whether it's Anthony Lazard or Scally's Vent, whoever, I feel like that could definitely open up things for Aaron Rodgers and stuff. And like I said, a guy that likes to just throw it up there, man, I just feel like Anthony Schwartz, the sky is the limit with this guy, and I really want the Packers to win big at the wide receiver position in this draft. And then finally, let's end off with the Minnesota Vikings. And I would, like I said, speaking from a Packers fan, our Bears might be the oldest rivalry, but I would say the Vikings are my rival, I would say, just for the fan base alone. Try not to get on topic here, but I just want to add some humor to this. But anyway, but nonetheless, man, I have been impressed with what they've been able to do. I remember a few years ago when they were drafting that defense. Unfortunately, a lot of those players, have since been gone. You talk about no Xavier Rhodes, no Trey Waynes. A lot of that defensive line is gone. Daniel Hunter last year was injured, so he didn't get to play. So a lot of that defense that we knew from a few years ago, which, by the way, even as a Packers fan, admit that was a defense worthy of at least getting to a Super Bowl. And it was honestly wasted. So now you have that offense built up with Kirk Cousins, Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, and Justin Jefferson. And yet, you're stuck, like I said, trying to build that defense over again. And so when I look at the Vikings here, I don't think that they'll address this need in the first round, but I'm going to go ahead and sell this young man's name because I feel like they need to get a defensive end, an edge rusher, and hopefully maybe in the second round, maybe they'll even trade up in the first round to get him. But I feel like this guy is something that they need to grab. Jason Owa, defensive end from Penn State. Again, if I mispronounce anything, let me know. But this guy is a raw talent. This guy, he's just getting into the rhythm of his game. He's already shown his explosiveness. And he reminds me of Daniel Hunter because a lot of the reason he dropped in the draft is because he was raw power, and yet he didn't have his technique down. He didn't have the tools that he needed to succeed. But once he got into the right coaching staff and they taught him what he needed to know, he's able to channel that power and become one of the most dangerous pass rushers in the league. I feel like the same thing is with Jason Oye. I mean, we talk about the 40-yard dash. Again, man, what is up with these defensive linemen running under 4.4? I mean, this is ridiculous. And so, like I said, he's a raw talent. He's young. I feel like he's ready to be molded by the right coaches. And I feel like, with Mike Zimmer and that defensive coaching staff, I feel like if they get their hands on this young man, that they could get, the tandem with Oye and Hunter, I feel like it could be a dangerous combination. But I think they're going to address the offensive line in the first round. And again, when you talk about, Kirk Cousins and Dalvin Cook, the success they've had, you really want to give them the protection that they need, especially, like I said, when you talk about the pass rush that comes from the Green Bay Packers, the Bears with Khalil Mack and Robert Quinn down there, and even the Lions, they've the rise of Romeo Okwara, and so I feel like they definitely need protection. They were exposed many times during the season. I remember the game against the Falcons, they were completely exposed, and so I feel like they need a guy that can defend in the pass, but most importantly, be a run blocker. And there's a guy that I feel like does just that, Christian Darrisaw, offensive tackle from Virginia Tech. And man, when this guy gets his hands on you, he's not gonna let you go. He's gonna take you 5 yards back. This guy is a beast. This guy, he just is very good at locking his arms in the center of the defender and not letting them go. And I feel like with this, like I said, with this offense, if they get the offensive line built, the sky is the limit. That they could be one of the top offenses, but they need protection, particularly at the left tackle position. And I think Christian Darrisaw could help the Vikings maybe get over the hump. And we talk about who's going to stop the Packers, People say the Bears with that defense, even though, people are questioning Andy Dalton. I think the Vikings, if they can get the right pieces together on defense and they can give Kirk Cousins and Dalvin Cook the protection that they need, then perhaps they're the ones that can be favored to challenge the Packers in the NFC North. And that is where we end this segment. Remember to go back to my channel. Remember to subscribe if you've missed some of my videos. It's easy to not only subscribe, but also click on the notifications so you don't miss any of my videos. You'll get an email to notify you and texts so that way you can get that way you guys don't miss any of my videos. And most of all, share. I try my best. I do my research to people talk about Google algorithms and stuff and how to get noticed on YouTube and stuff. But it all starts with you. If you like it, then spread the gospel of the Average Joe's Sports Network. And have a good day, everybody.